Well, Merry Christmas, everyone. We're here on the eve of Christmas Eve, and our third press conference today, or this week. Seems like today. It's one solid, continuous day for me. But we want to talk about something that is very important to community, to the people who live in different communities. And we're going to talk about Fort Meade today. If you have ever had the honor and the privilege of visiting or living in Fort Meade, you know that it is a remarkable small community, small town in the south end of Polk County. And it's where right is always right and wrong is always wrong and wrong is never right. And it's a great town where everybody knows everybody. And in this community, I had people come to me and say, hey, we've got a problem. We've got a problem with the street sale of drugs. Now, we call this quality of life issues. And quite frankly, the big cities across this nation have totally ignored quality of life. They've ignored the victims who live in the Portlands and the Seattles and the Minneapolises and the Chicagos. They've ignored the hardworking people that live in these communities in favor of the criminals, in favor of the ones that want to create discord in a community, in favor of the ones that want to leave needles from drug use in your front yard or your doorstep, that want to, in favor of those that urinate and defecate in your yard and on your doorstep. You know, these big cities play to those folks that do that, as opposed to the hardworking folks that are trying to live in the community. Well, we don't do that here. Here we pay attention to the community, to the hardworking men and women, to the retirees that live in communities that sometimes are not wealthy communities, sometimes are not average communities, but sometimes are poor communities. You see, I really believe that we as government representatives not should be, but must be the representative and the voice for those who don't have a voice. And when the good, hardworking, God-fearing people that live in poor communities say, we can't pull out of our driveway for drug sales, we can't sit on our front porch for the way we're treated by drug dealers and drug customers, we're going to do our best to get that in check. Our undercover detectives moved into this community, and we arrested a whole lot of people. And I'm going to give you some snapshots today of the kind of criminals that roam around and take advantage of or prey on people in poor communities or lower socioeconomic communities all across this nation, and are allowed to do that. Sometimes they're encouraged to do it by the lack of conduct or by their local authorities. Not so here. There's not going to be a street in Polk County where it's not safe to let your children play, where it's not safe to walk at night. We're going to make sure that it's always safe for the children to play in the open fields and in the yards. We're going to make sure it's always safe for folks to walk their dogs and visit with neighbors. But you have to keep people like this in check. So let me introduce you to Larry Donald. Larry's 49 years old. He's not a kid. He's from Fort Meade. He lives in Fort Meade. You'll see a common trend here. He's not employed in the traditional sense, making money. He has a history of 26 felony arrests, 18 misdemeanor arrests. We arrested him, for example, in 2012 for trafficking in hydrocodone and sale of cocaine. He was trafficking in these drugs, minimum mandatories, but he pled down and got probation. Well, he had 4 violations of probation And finally, he went to prison about 2017. He was released from a short prison stint on what started as probation. That's right. He did 696 days in the county jail. The state prison gave him credit for that when he was sentenced for his last violation of probation. Now think about it. He got a probation when he should have got a minimum mandatory. He had 4 violations before he accumulated time in lockup. And then he did some jail time, and then he was released. You would think he would learn, but he doesn't learn. We have rearrested him for sale of cocaine and sale of methamphetamine. That's his job. His job is to deal drugs. His job is to make things ugly in the community. His job is to set a bad example. Our job is to make sure he goes to jail. And that's our Christmas present to him. And our Christmas present to the people in the community is that he's locked up and you're not going to have to worry about him on the street corner. But here's another in the trend. Willie Dunlap III. He's 43. These aren't kids. He lives in Fort Meade. What's his employment? Drug dealer? That's right. He doesn't have a job. He's a drug dealer. He has 6 felonies in his history, 7 misdemeanors. He's been to prison 1 time. So we've got him for sale of synthetic cannabis, 3 counts of sale of methamphetamine, 3 counts of sale of cocaine, and oh, by the way, he's got a firearm possession and a sale of drugs in his history. That's right, 43 years old, on the streets. Does he have traditional employment? No, because heck, if he was working today, it would be hard to aggravate the neighbors or sell drugs all up and down the streets in front of their houses. Then there's Cherika Anderson. She's, 32 years of age. She's from Fort Meade. Does she have a job? Meh. Nope, she doesn't have a job either. But she is getting federal assistance. That's right, when you go to work and pay taxes, she gets money from the federal government so she can stay home and commit crime. So what's her history? 9 felonies, 123 misdemeanors. Did you hear what I said? On the eve of Christmas Eve, 123 misdemeanors in her criminal history. She's never been to prison, but she's been to the county jail many times. She's what they call that low-level nonviolent offender. Forgeries, thefts, more forgeries, more thefts, retail theft. She is just a menace to the community. Whenever she's out, she's being a pain in someone's rear end. Then there's Larry Criswell. On the 31st of December, he'll be 40. He's 39. Once again, no kids. Where does he work? He doesn't work. You see, but he gets federal assistance. So he can sit at home in Fort Meade and sell drugs. History, 15 felonies, 17 misdemeanors. He did 16 years in prison for DUI manslaughter. And he was released in November of 2019. That's right. And we arrested him less than a year later for 3 counts of sale of meth and 1 count sale of alprazolam. That's right. How much did that teach him? Didn't teach him anything. Gets out, doesn't work, been in prison for 16 years, taking his federal assistance and selling drugs in the neighborhood. Jermaine Phillips, he's 33, Fort Meade is where he lives. He claims that he works for a transport company moving people to private appointments. He's got 5 felonies, 8 misdemeanors. He pled guilty to 3 years for trafficking in meth and was released in August of 2020, August 6th, to be exact. All right, listen, I don't want you to miss this. Less than 90 days later, we're buying drugs from him on the streets. He was just released less than 90 days earlier for selling trafficking amounts of drugs, and we're arresting him again. 2 counts of sale of cocaine, 2 counts of sale of meth. Less than 90 days. Jermaine Phillips. And then there's Dwayne Reynolds. He's 52. Fort Meade. Where does he work? Nah. Doesn't work. He receives federal assistance, EBT, so that he can stay at home and be arrested for, in this case, possession. Oh, but let's look at his criminal history. 59 felony charges, 5 misdemeanors. He's been to state prison 5 times going back to 1987. He was last released from state prison 18 months ago, and he's in possession of drugs again. Here's David McCutcheon from Fort Meade. Where does he work? Nah, he doesn't work. He's got a history of 2 felonies, 4 misdemeanors. We charged him with 3 counts of sale of cocaine this time. That's right. His job is to sell drugs on the streets of Fort Meade. Now, you may recognize the name McCutcheon. His cousin by marriage, Patrina McCutcheon, who was a wonderful member of our sheriff's office working in human resources, and she's retired, is currently a city commissioner. That's her cousin by marriage. What an inspiration for the family. You've managed to embarrass your cousin by marriage, Patrina. You've managed to embarrass the McCutcheon family, which is a wonderful name and a wonderful family in Fort Meade. Many of them are my dear friends. But you don't work, you sell drugs. Of all the cases that our detectives made, I was surprised we found all but one of them. This is the dude we want. Andros Grace, or Andros Grace, or just Mr. Grace. He's 35. He claims he washes washes cars for a job. He's from Fort Meade. He goes by the nickname of Kojo. He's hiding from us. And that terribly disturbs us. It crushes our heart. We're trying to give him a Christmas present by locking him up in the county jail, and he's being elusive. Because, you know, we want him for sale of cocaine. He's got a history of 4 felonies, 5 misdemeanors. But here's my Christmas present to you. If you know where Mr. Grace is, Andros, if you dial Crime Stoppers 1-800-226-TIPS, we'll give you cash money. Cash money, okay? And he goes to jail for Christmas. What a perfect solution. He gets locked up like he should. But let me focus just a minute. There are people all around the country and legislators in Florida saying these are low-level, nonviolent crimes, and we shouldn't even arrest people for this. Ladies and gentlemen, you're forgetting who your audience is. Your audience are the good, hard-working people that need to be left alone, that need to be able to allow their children to play in the streets without watching these guys that I've pointed out sell drugs on the streets. These are quality of life crimes, and people have the right to be safe and secure and happy and content. And these people have no right to violate the peace and tranquility of the community. The feedback that we got from throughout Fort Meade was remarkably supportive. And keep in mind, we responded with this operation because the community said, Sheriff, we need some help. We got some streets where we can't play, where it's not safe to have our kids out because of these people with a long history of ignoring the law. Are there any questions about this before I get on to the next topic?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the release. It mentions a lot of these sales, were they in the area of the L&F Grocery Store?
They were on an open field that has been problematic for us because there's like 7 owners of this open field. So it's not like you can get all 7 of them to agree to help us work on the issue. Some of them were in the area of the store. Some of them were on the street. We got this group here out of one house when we served the search warrant. Did you hear me? 10 in a house. What an eclectic group of criminals in one house doing drugs.
So this wasn't, just to be clear though, this wasn't like a official drug ring per se, just a lot of low, I don't know, so low level people selling drugs.
These are street level drug dealers. This is not an organized criminal enterprise with a head of the organization. They were all, what would you call them, self-motivated entrepreneurs in the criminal drug trade. Some of them were just users. But I can't get over my dude here. You know, this guy's got the history. Just ignore the law. And people tell us our criminal justice system's too tough. It's not forgiving enough. Well, there's your sign. I would suggest that, one, we should have a forgiving criminal justice system, but not 159 times or 139 times or 57 times. But how much more forgiving do you want to make it than these folks have enjoyed a very forgiving criminal justice system? You all with the idea that we need to decriminalize, let these people hang out and create problems, y'all pack your stuff and go to Portland if you want to live like that. Because they seem to like it out there. And you decent people in Portland don't have to put up with that junk either, because there's lots of places like Fort Meade and Polk County and Florida where we will lock your butt up for violating the law and disturbing the peace and tranquility that neighbors have a right to enjoy. So now let me tell you about another event. Justin Mathis is 31 years of age. Justin has a very responsible job, and he's out with his best friend, Christopher Lofton, and his cousin, David Weldon. They're at Gators Dockside in Highland City, drinking alcoholic beverage. Then they hop in the car with Justin, or the truck, actually. It's Justin's pickup truck. And they go south on Highway 98. Well, the first mistake they made was getting in a truck and allowing a drunk to drive. It's bad to drink and drive, but it's not good to ride with a drunk who's been drinking and driving. So Justin, he's driving south on Highway 98 with his best friend and his cousin in the car. And he comes upon a traffic light at 540A and US 98 just south of Highland City. The light has just turned green and a semi-truck has just started to move south. Before that semi can even clear the intersection, Justin rams into the rear end of it at highway speeds. And he kills Christopher Lofton, who's 34, and David Weldon, who's 38. He kills them. Think about it. They're not going to be home for Christmas. They're not going to be with their family and friends. Not this year, not ever. When we arrive, Justin is still in the driver's seat. He is taken to Lakeland Regional, where he's got relatively minor injuries. He's treated and released. But his cousin and his best friend are dead at the scene from this horrible crash. We got the blood alcohol back, 0.25. I didn't stutter. 0.25, over 3 times the legal limit. We arrested Justin yesterday afternoon for 2 counts of traffic homicide or traffic DUI manslaughter. 2 counts. And he should spend the next 20 to 30 years in prison. But you know what? At least he's alive. His best friend and cousin have a life sentence of death because he chose to drink and drive. By all feedback, he's a decent guy, works, but he drank and he killed someone. So over these holidays weekend, the Christmas holidays are coming up this weekend, and the following weekend are New Year's, and throughout, I want you to think about that. It's not just criminals, hardcore criminals, that go to jail. This guy's going to end up doing more time than all of those put together, except for one, maybe, because of a bad choice. And his intentional conduct caused death. Don't drink and drive. Uber is cheap. Yellow cabs are cheap. Hitchhiking is cheap. I really don't recommend that at night. Somebody else drinking and driving will probably run over your drunk butt. Call somebody. But this is the kind of thing that shocks our soul whenever you see that what otherwise a decent person, by the accounts we receive, is going to prison for a long time, as he should. Any questions on that?
Sir, can you talk about your appointment by the President to the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Council?
Sure, I'll be more than happy to. I received a call, I guess it was last week, from the White House, and they said that the President wanted to appoint me as a member of the Coordinating Council on Juvenile Justice for Delinquency Prevention, and asked me if I was interested. And I said, certainly I'm interested. Is this good to like January 20th when the new president takes office? And they said, no, it's a 3-year appointment, and it's a presidential appointment, and I said, well, you know, I would be honored to serve. And the reason for that is we give advice and counsel at the highest level that can affect juvenile justice and crime prevention programs across the nation, among other topics. One of my favorite topics that we're all bought into here is protecting children from being bought, sold, trafficked. And I see it as an opportunity to provide significant input. It is an honor of the highest magnitude to receive a presidential appointment. I mean, how many people in the United States out of 320 million ever receive a presidential appointment? And when you can be on an advisory council where you can make positive differences in the lives of people all across the United States, that's a true honor. I think we're failing the juveniles across this country with our lack of structured programs to correct behavior. And I'm really excited to be able to provide my opinion once again. I was up there the last 2 years and as the president of the major county sheriffs, but I'm real excited to go up there and be able to provide my expertise as I've developed over 4 decades plus of working in law enforcement to look out for the best interest of children, victims and suspects, and to look out for those children who are abused and neglected. So it's exciting. I anticipate before the 3 years is over, Congress may be saying, go on recess, he's on the way up here again. Because I got lots to tell them, to the ones that listen and the ones that don't. The difference in me and some of them, they're going to get up there and, roll around and talk nice stuff and, oh, whatever you want. I'm going to get up there and tell them the truth. Because the truth will set you free. And sometimes the truth hurts. But you don't make change by getting up there and kissing butt. You make change by being concerned with the children on the ground that need services. And it gets filtered so bad, from my experience, by the time it gets to D.C., that those in a management position aren't hearing the truth. You're about to hear it. So I appreciate the president putting me in this position. I hope that I can help make a positive change or positive influence in the way we deal with juveniles, both as victims and as suspects. Because, quite frankly, juveniles who commit crime, we need to figure them out and put them on the right path so they live a productive, happy life. We don't want them tangled up in this criminal justice system. But we've got to do right things for them when their parents have not done right things for them. It's why they ended up tangled up with the system in the first place. So I look forward to the opportunity to help not only those that are victims of crime as juveniles, but those that are suspects or perpetrators of crime or juvenile delinquent acts which would otherwise be crimes. So I'm excited about it. It's a new challenge, new day. Anything else? I wish God's greatest blessings on each of you for a happy holiday season. Merry Christmas, and have a prosperous and safe 2021. I don't know about you, but 2020 has been a challenge. I am ready to get on to the new year and get rid of this old year. See you later. See y'all.